Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of the All JuveCast, and it's a little off the grid here, but my man Eric, who's been a guest here a couple times before, just wanted to get some things off his chest, and we thought let's fire it up and get an open discussion going. So there won't be necessarily a match review, it's going to be just an overview of Juve in general and where we are at currently. Eric, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. It's pretty early for me. I'm over here in the States. It's 7, but you're a few hours behind, so
Yeah,
we
it's
both
about 4 a.m.
sacrifice some
here
time
now,
to do this.
but yeah, we've been trying to hook up for a while now. It's time to get her done. Let's get into it, man. Juve, just what are your thoughts right now? Here we are, December. I know where you stood with Sarri being
Yeah.
appointed. That's going to come up for sure through this pod, but I went into it open-minded. Obviously, we all know the guys that all the Juve fans were dreaming of to get as managers. Didn't pan out. We ended up with Sarri, but I'm giving the guy an open shot because I know we needed change. But from the start of the year to now, I've seen the team go backwards, and I'm starting to get really, really frustrated. Might as well let everyone know this is after the Lazio match that we're recording, but I did make some suggestions to some lineups that seemed to make sense in my mind. Sorry, I don't know, being stubborn or whatnot is just there's no change and our plays remain stagnant. But let's get your take on the start of the year. We know you didn't want Sarri appointed, and where we are now, and just your overall thoughts.
So from the beginning of the year till now, there's been arguments that Sarri's been able to transform some of our players, which is great because I know the last couple of years with Max, they've kind of taken a dive, and they're quality players that just haven't been playing well. So I think a lot of people, when he came in, the way that he was describing what he was going to do, we all thought that he was going to go with this 4-3-3 formation with Costa, Dybala, and Ronaldo on the top. And then out of nowhere, maybe it was because of health or for whatever reason, he decided to completely change it to this 4-3-1-2. For the first couple games, it worked. And I think the reason that it worked is because no defense really understood what his philosophy was with that. So you get a new coach with this new philosophy, with a completely change in formation, with a completely change in personnel. There's been arguments that people have been thriving under Sarri, and my arguments is that they haven't. So my first point with him right now in the state of Juve is all my 80 followers that I have on Twitter. I don't have very many. I didn't want Sarri. He has a reputation of doing XYZ, and we are seeing firsthand that he is doing XYZ. He's living up to his reputation. So, people like Alexandro who came in, and I would say for the first 4 or 5 games was outstanding. Miralem Pjanic, first 4 or 5 games, was playing way more closer to goal. Juan Cuadrado has come in at right back, and he's been really great at right back. But correct me if I'm wrong, Max Allegri also played Juan Cuadrado at right back, and we crucified Max Allegri for doing it because we thought he was crazy. Guys like Gonzalo Higuain, Dybala, these are guys who are thriving under Sarri, but I think a lot of that is due to just defenses not knowing how to game plan against them. But I think teams are finally starting to figure out his game plans. And I've said this since day one, like back in his Chelsea days, even with Napoli, is that if you want to break his plan, you press him. You press him high, and you have an offsides trap. You set the offsides trap so your back line is playing high. So what happens is this 1 to 2 touch passing, it sounds good, but when you are constantly being pressed and there's a man right there every time you touch the ball, you don't have the ability to find an outlet that quick. You can't think faster than you can pass the ball, which is why what happens is that over these games, I feel that Miralem Pjanic who was playing forward, has now really moved back into a deeper holding midfield position.
Mm-hmm.
And once we advance the ball to a certain point and we get pressed, we check out of the attack because they don't have that quick outlet to pass to. So what ends up happening is what I'm noticing, maybe you haven't, is that Sarri's in this limbo world where he wants to play offensive football, he wants to have good defense, and then he's trying to play the counter. Like we're doing all these things in one game, and he's not good or not great at any 3 of those things.
Absolutely.
So what I'm seeing is that we are almost playing very Allegri-esque ball, but we're not as good as we were when Allegri was managing it because he specialized in that. So you have Sarri who's trying to do these things and he's not good at it. And then now we're just playing, I don't even know what you want to call this. It's not offensive, it's not defensive, and we can't counter.
Yeah, something changed along the way. I'm not sure. I haven't, researched enough through the season to go back to figure out when exactly that changed. But something happened because we came out of the gates gradually progressing each match, right, playing offensively, quick 1-2s, and really changing the angle of attack, whether it be out wide and then coming inside. But something happened, even though most of the goals we were allowing were being from set pieces or just something like that, but something changed along the way where we just slowed down our play and we've looked a lot more cautious in how we approach matches. And I'm not sure when that started, but it's changed everything. It's changed. Really, the biggest thing I notice is the movement. The movement of the players has become so stagnant as to what it was at the start of the season. With the way we move the ball and just the sequences, because we had set offensive sequences that started from the flank. We had ones that started off from Pjanic's feet. And we had some that even kicked off from Bonucci at the back. And you could tell these were training ground sequences that were coming to fruition throughout the match. That's all disappeared. And I don't really understand why, but now we do not move. Our flanks are not supportive as they should be. There's no give and goes anymore. And it's just a real slow, in your face, like what you see is what you get, and it's super easy to defend. And not only that, our left side has completely disappeared. All our play has shifted to the right, and that's been prominent now for about 4 matches where the left side of our field is just non-existent. And it's crazy to me. The same guys, same players. Sarri was doing well, even with Khedira in at the start of the lineup. But now it's just, we've done just a complete 180 from where we were headed to where we're going now. And I can't really figure it out. As far as the players, Pjanic started off hot. But again, he was forward more. And you're right, now maybe shifting to a protective, more defensive thing where, Sarri is essentially doing the same thing that frustrated me last season, where we were pushing with the left and right side mids, keeping Pjanic back. And the thing is, you don't have enough creativity from left or the right side. So we get into these sequences where the ball just ends up having to go backwards. And nothing ends up happening. We frustrate the hell out of our forwards. And we are essentially, we've come full circle, and we're ended up right back where we were at the source of all the frustration amongst Juventini. It's crazy to me. As far as Sandro, he came out of the gate hot. He's missed a bit, come back, but it's not the same as it was at the start. Cuadrado, he right back. Nobody wanted it because we've seen it before. It wasn't the best. Cuadrado started off great. He was doing well. he essentially took over the right back spot, but how much of that is what he was doing, which was actually great at the start, but now it's just, the fact that it's DeCilio and Danilo behind him. So how much of it is that, right? I don't know. Do we go to a 4-3-3? Now you start thinking about personnel. What do you end up doing in that situation? Because Ramsey, when healthy, which is incredibly frustrating, and granted, Sarri has no control over injuries, but we bring in Ramsey, we bring in Rabiot. Ramsey really fits that attacking mid trequartista role. It worked great at the start, but we were playing a different mentality, a different style at the start, and now it's kind of disappeared where it's affecting him as well. Bernardeschi, right. Even at the start when we were playing a good he just doesn't, for me, that trequartista role is not for him. I think he can be utilized. I'm not saying he can't be played. I just think where we need the most assistance is in the midfield. And for me, it makes sense for him to shift as a Metzala. He's played great, solid performances under Allegri as a Metzala. Let's give it a go. There's so many things we could be trying, and I think that's the frustrating part, is that now Sarri's gone for quite some time now with the same guys in the same position and not changing enough. Just being happy to get these scrapings.
Right.
And it's come to an end because we're recording post Lazio. First loss of the season, and not a good one by any means. This one was, I don't know, our first half was okay, but we just want to keep this discussion open and whatnot. But this game was just frustrating and just highlighted so many things. Like, we've had the Ronaldo thing going on in the background too, which doesn't help anything. But something's changed along the lines with Sarri, and all the things he was saying at the start of the season were the right things. He's going to do the right things. He's going to make the right moves. Now all of a sudden it's changed. Now all of a sudden I'm starting to get some frustrations in the words he's saying, because he's starting to remind me a bit of what Allegri used to do and try to justify some of the things that we are seeing that do not work. So let's go like this. The play being stagnant, frustrating. Where do we go from here? What are some things you think Juve needs to attempt? Whether is it a formation? Do you think it's formation? Do you think it's like, I see so many issues right now.
Yeah, how do you attack this?
That just goes so much deeper, like mentality and approach, our intensity. Like, we only play probably 15 minutes of most matches at the proper approach level, intensity, and sense of urgency. We usually have to wait for adverse situations, which is exactly what we were doing last season. Actually, you can even say 2 seasons. We wouldn't crank it up until, oh my God, now we're suffering a draw or potentially losing. So I see so many things above and beyond tactics and the formation and everything like that. And the funny thing is that everyone's going to just be on midfield. It's the same old story with Juve, right? The midfield. But I see so much that goes even deeper, and then it's funny how quickly people forget about the midfield when we do all those other things right and it comes together, which we saw at the start of the season. Like I mentioned, even with Matuidi and Khedira in there, we were playing wicked ball, but it just stopped. So let's get your thoughts on, the tactics, the formation. Like, where do we go from here? What do we do?
So I've made mention about going back to a 4-3-3, and a lot of people are a little bit more resistant to it based on the individuals we have available to do it, or those who are in form. It would keep them not on the field. And I said, what are you willing to sacrifice an entire 11 on the pitch for one person, or are you willing to sacrifice the one person for the entire team? I'm on the fence with you. If one person's in form but you can get the other 10 to play better, then you get the other 10 to play better. That just makes the most sense. So you have a coach who came in, completely changed a formation that we're not used to, with a completely different philosophy that we're not used to, and they're not good at. This team is not built for 1 to 2 touch passing. Not to mention my own personal philosophy on that is that the idea of 1 to 2 touch passing it worked when he was at Napoli, and I think it was a new thing, so it allowed him to work. But as he has continued to manage, you've seen it work less and less because I don't believe it works. I think it completely covers up your lack of competency as a coach. The only one that I know that can do it and do it well is Pep. And Sarri's not Pep. So unless you have the quality of players who understand spacing, who understand where to pass and attack through the lines, it doesn't work because the moment you press them, just like you had mentioned, you're checking out. So you push the ball up, you get pressed, the ball goes backwards. So for me, where do we go to trying to right the ship? And I feel like switching back to a 4-3-3 would be the beginning of that. And the reason for that is because that is a comfortable formation for the players that we have. We've done it for years. They understand their roles in that position, and we have the players to do it. You can put players who are more comfortable in that position than they are currently. So, and then to me, you have to understand what is it that you want to achieve when you're playing a game. Do you want to score goals? Because if you want to score goals, you have to be okay with conceding. I'd rather see us focus on attack, and the game be 4-2 or 5-3 than us trying to attack and then trying to play defense and then trying to counter. Pick one. Focus on one and work on it. If you want to be a counter team, learn how to absorb pressure and counter. But if you want to attack, which is what Sarri says that he's going to do, that's the thing that he's been telling everybody. We're going to score goals. Well, you're not scoring goals. But if you want to score goals, then you have to be okay with the game being wide open. You have to be okay with taking a chance and doing things in order for your team to score the goals. And I don't think he's willing to do that, which is why we're stuck in this little bit of a limbo where he doesn't know how to game plan when they're kind of doing a little bit of everything, but they're just not good. So for me, it's a formation change because these players seem to me that they are very uncomfortable in this formation. The communication doesn't seem to be there, and then just being comfortable in that formation. So get them comfortable, and then after that, get them on board with doing one thing and one thing only. You want to score goals? Fine. You might get conceded, but focus on just scoring. So one other thing I want to talk on is like players and then the player's position. I have a huge issue. Anybody, once again, all 80 followers that I have on Twitter know that I'm a huge Berna fan. And the reason I'm a fan of his is because there is so much potential inside of that guy, and you got to pull it out of him. He doesn't play consistently well, but when you watch him play certain games, you see that glimpse, or you see those little bit of just flashes of really quality play. And I'm like, we just got to get him to do that consistently. So my question to you is, he takes a lot of heat because he's not, quote unquote, the number 10. He's not a trequartista. So my question is, what do you think in this position, in this formation, he's supposed to do? Because you have to understand that, like when Rambo was in there, all he did was just make runs in the box, which is great if you're scoring goals. But if you're not scoring goals, your runs in the box don't do anything. Nobody, absolutely nobody, has played that role well. When Douglas Costa has been subbed on, he drifts wide. He goes out to the wing. When Dybala gets put there, like he did yesterday, he went out to the wing. When Rambo did it, he made a few runs into the box, but he wasn't a great number 10 either. So I feel like we do not have the person, unless it's Pjanic, which you've made mention before, and I kind of agree with that. He's not the guy who's going to score a bunch of goals, but he's the guy who's going to have subliminal passing to his strikers. He has the ability to do that. What I don't understand is after watching the game and I see people criticize certain players, what do you want them to do in that moment, like during the game? That's been my biggest thing is like Burnett has been taking so much criticism, and if you watch the play as a whole, what did you expect him to do? If you're getting completely collapsed on, and that's what's happening, is he's playing in front of their defensive mid or behind their defensive mid and then in front of their center backs, and they're just collapsing on all three strikers. Where is he supposed to go? Yeah. What is he supposed to do?
So as far as that specific role, I will challenge the fact that the role was played well very early into the season by Ramsey for probably like 2 matches. And the reason was, yeah, he was making runs, but it was synchronized very well with Ronaldo and Dybala. And what happens is Berna's done it too. So I'm not going to just go on Ramsey because I've seen Berna do it too, where one of Ronaldo or Dybala, it's usually Dybala, will come, show for the ball. At that moment, Bernardeschi or Ramsey would be making those penetrating runs. We would find him. We'd have the ball deep. From there, it's either a low cross goal. He could find top of the box. We were generating. But that was the sequence. That was a great sequence. But they all have to be in sync. Right. That role now, no matter Ramsey, no matter Berna, it's become stagnant. It's become stagnant, the same as it is with our flanks. The movement has gone. The movement has disappeared. I don't know why. But our play in general, like I've made mention a few podcasts ago, like just watching us, we look so tired. We just look like a tired club. Yeah. But you know what? It makes sense. It makes sense when you watch us play, because the slower you play, the more you're going against the flow. When you play against the flow and you play a really slow stack, that actually makes you work harder. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. The slower you play, the harder you work. And the reason is because that defense, the team you're playing against, has everything in front of you. It is so easy to defend. Whereas if you're playing quicker and you're letting the ball do the work, the ball's naturally going into guys' pass as they're making runs. It's easy. It's easier as a player. And I know that. I know that firsthand. And anybody that's listening that's played, if you play a slow brand of football where defenses are constantly on you, they're pressing on you, it's a hell of a lot harder. When it's easier to play with the ball in front of you running at defenses. We don't get into those scenarios anymore. Yeah. You know, at the start of the year, we were doing a hell of a job and we were coming back. I think back to that Inter match. After the match against Merda, it all switched. But that match, we were running at them consistently. It was Ronaldo. It was it's just any, like, we were just turning the ball quickly on the counter and attacking them. That's disappeared. So the slower we play, it's harder on the guys. What do we need out of that role? Like now, when we take away the movement, lack of movement, it's really hard to play in that role because now it's become so congested. Yeah. It's so congested in there.
And that's my argument, is that if you could, in the way that we play now, if there's no movement on the flanks, if you take whoever is in that role, you can take Ramsey and pull him out. You can take Berna, pull him out. You can take Costa and pull him out. Everybody's occupying the same space. As a matter of fact, it would be more beneficial if we didn't have anybody playing that role, because if he's sitting there and he's central and our two strikers try to come into the box, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's just collapsing. So when people say X person has been anonymous, yeah, where is he supposed to go? Unless he's getting advice to be able to go out wide, which he shouldn't be doing that because your two fullbacks should be flanking them. Where is he supposed to be occupying space? So my argument is that when Berna plays poor, because I watch him a lot specifically because, of course, he's my guy. So I'm going to go, you know what, if he's going to be criticized, let me see his movements. He's got nowhere to go. Yeah. So that's and obviously he's meant to be on the flank. He's got pace. He's more comfortable out there. He likes to cut inside. When you only restrict him to just central and he can't go anywhere, he is completely useless at that point. Like, where is he supposed to go? But that also you have to encompass, well, what's your two strikers doing? Where are they? And the issue that I have with Zalo, I think he's one of our top 5 players this season. He's been amazing. He's done all the dirty work. Is that when he doesn't get involved, he plays deeper. So if Miralem Pjanic is playing deeper now, if he's not getting his forward movement, he's going to draw his 2 midfielders deeper, which means he's going to draw Bernadeschi deeper and away from his strikers, which means Zalo, if he's on the field, he's going to play deeper. So just by not getting forward, everybody's already out of position, and the final product's not going to be there. So if you don't have good link-up play between your midfield, Burnett, and your strikers because you're playing so deep, I don't understand how people are singling out one person and going, oh my God, why isn't this person doing it? It's a team thing. Nobody's
it's too easy, right? It's too easy to just pick out the one guy that's made the most errors, but sometimes you got to break it down a little bit further and just realize why those errors are coming to fruition, what's going on, right? Because like we said, that role now, Trequartista, with the lack of movement and the slow play and defenses being prepared all the time, it's too congested, it's too tight, it's tough to play in there. Going to a 4-3-3 that you want to, what happens to Dybala in your 4-3-3? Center forward.
Keep him close to goal. And see what could happen is like your 2 wingers, obviously Ronaldo can move forward. Your 4-3-3 can transition into a false 9 easy. And I think if we're going to continue the formation, I made a post about this, if you're going to continue this 4-3-1-2 formation, why not play a false 9? Because you get more width with it anyway. So your 2 guys on your left wing and right wing are going to be natural out there. Ronaldo in a false 9 position, he's going to be natural out there anyway. He's going to be playing closer to goal, but he'll play as a left winger. And then whoever you decide to put on the right wing, Zalo can do it, Cuadrado can do it, Berna can do it. So for me, if you did Bernadeschi on the right wing, Dybala in the center, and Ronaldo on the left wing, there's no difference. I mean, there might be a difference in quality if you want to between Costa and Bernadeschi. But you can transition into the false 9 fluidly. And see, when I look at a game, I look at if we run with formation A and something happens and you have to do some in-game tactics and changes, how fluid can you be into moving into other formations? And see, the good thing, and this is not a podcast about a Bernadeschi, me defending him at all. That's not what I'm doing here. But with him, at least him or Costa, your fluidity in your front 3 can constantly move, which causes problems with your defense. So if you have something like that, Ronaldo can play on the right side, Bernadeschi can play on the left. You'll notice that they will constantly switch in games, and they do it so well that it takes the announcer saying they've switched sides for me to realize that he went from one side all the way to the other. So yesterday to me was a perfect opportunity that when Bentancur got hurt, they could have easily taken Bernadeschi and moved him down, taken Dybala, moved him in the hole, and put on Gonzalo Higuain. I thought that would have been a perfect opportunity to have done that formation, and people had said nobody in their right mind would have done that. Well, why wouldn't you? You're 1 up against a very difficult team. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a coach that says we want to score goals and attack for 90 minutes. That would have been a perfect time to do it. And he didn't. And he took off. He swapped out his one only creative midfielder yesterday and put on a defensive mid. How else do you expect to play?
Yeah, the tough thing is he's said it that we're probably not going to get a Ronaldo, Dybala, Higuain front. Higuain playing on the right wing role, I'm not so sure about either. The reason is if we're going to play 4-3-3, we're going to have those three guys on the front. The nice thing about having a Costa, a Bernardeschi as one of those wingers is you're not going to get defensive coverage out of one spot, which is the left wing when Ronaldo's occupying it.
Yeah.
So that's one guy gone as far as any kind of defensive assistance. Dybala also minimal, but he will track back, but it's pretty minimal, right? So if we're going to put Gonzalo in there as well, really becomes an issue, because essentially what happens to our defensive shape is it becomes 4-5 and then that one forward hanging out up top, right? No matter how we line up defensively, that's been our shell, and it's been our shell for ages. So I don't know about that on the 4-3-3, but what I want to ask you is, do we abandon this holding midfielder above the defense and shift to two defensive mids, move Pjanic forward, and have two, one on the left, one on the right, and just almost create a 4-2-3-1? Do we maybe do something like that where we have the stability of two guys that their job is strictly to get the ball to our playmaker, which would be Pjanic, or one of the forwards that drops off to show, and do it that way in order to advance him up the field? The other option was my idea, which was move Bentancur as that holder, get Pjanic as one of the side midfielders, and allow him the freedom to go. If we want to continue with one central holder and two side midfielders where we actually attack through, it can go either way, right? We've seen teams succeed, big teams in Europe succeed, where they have one holder, but he's not your actual playmaker. He literally he takes the ball from defense, gets it to a playmaker. That's it. But that's usually how that roll. This Regista thing's kind of, been embedded into us. Obviously, we had Pirlo. We have to move on at some point and just, realize he's gone. This role, this thing that these guys want to stick to, it's not for everybody. You're not going to find a lot of guys that can even handle it as a player. But then the other issue that comes is when you get a team that can lock in on them very well and shut it down, right, and have enough coverage in their personnel where it renders that position useless. That's where we get into problems, because you're not going to get it out of Matuidi. You're not going to get it out of Emre Can. You're not going to get it out of Khedira, like as far as the creation, the ability to, make a nice turn, beat a guy, and make a great ball through. So do we go with switching the holder, moving Pjanic out to side? He came to us off his fantastic season at Roma, playing attacking mid. Even when you watch him with his national side, he plays very advanced for Bosnia and scores a lot of their goals. I think it's time we, use him the way he came to us. Yeah. And just see what develops there and gets it. He's got all the tools necessary that a lot of the times we're missing from whoever's playing up in that advanced role, which is the touch, the decision making. He's got it all. He possesses it all. He can do it, and he's got a great long range shot. I think we go that route. I think the two defensive mids is another possibility that we could explore. The 4-3-3. The only issue that's come up now is the fact that, as we said, due to going into the season with three fullbacks, I don't think we could sacrifice Cuadrado to move him up, because we need him at the back. So that's a shame, really, because some of our best performances this season were also when he was creating a lot of the attack from right back, and it's frustrating, right? It's a tough thing to go, but what are your thoughts on either switching the holding mid or moving to two defensive mids?
So, before I get to that, real quick, going back to that 4-3-3 with Zalo on the right wing.
Yeah.
That I understand that, like, you would sacrifice a huge defensively, like, it doesn't make sense. But my perspective on it is that if you're in that formation, you're not in that formation to defend. You're in that formation to score goals. And like I said, we have to be honest with ourselves that if you want to win scoring goals, then you can't be conservative. You need to win scoring goals. And that's why, for me, and the fluidity of changing, which if you wanted to go from a 4-3-3 back to a 4-3-1-2, you can kind of move and rearrange with people who can plug and play in a very fluid motion. So I get it. You don't want Ronaldo or Zalo defending at all because they can't. But if the objective is to score goals, score goals. For me, the 4-2-3-1, I really, really like that formation. It's very Allegri-esque. We did it with him, and I thought we played our best ball with that formation. My only concern is your front four, because that 4-2-3-1 turns into like a 4-2-4 real quick, and I do not like only having two midfielders. I don't. I think having that third really helps. So for me,
just explain it how I would envision it, just so that you can work with this as you explain. Okay. Defensively, so again, factoring the same thing that we would in any formation, really, Ronaldo defensively, right? So let's count that out on the defensive side. So in a 4-2-3-1, what I would see is two defensive mids. I would see Pjanic as that top. Okay, so there's your triangle, two defensive mids, Pjanic ahead of them. On the outside, on the right, it's going to be your Costa, it's going to be your Bernardeschi. Dybala and Higuain would end up rotating that top spot.
Okay.
And then obviously you'd have Ronaldo, and then whoever ends up subbing him off, you'd get Costa, you would get Burnout, whatever, out on that wing. So essentially, if Ronaldo's out there, even with Dybala and Higuain, defensively, what would happen is you would just shift into a 4-4-2. So you'd end up with four midfields as your shell, because that outside winger, whether it's Costa or Bruno, would provide the other coverage, and Pjanic would drop back enough defensively to create that. It's just offensively move forward. That's how you open up. So that's the shape, and now you can work. That's what I envision.
To me, that's dependent on not being countered. If you have the ability and you have the time to get back into your defensive shape, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. But what if we are in a build-up play and Mira's having to move forward to create that, and somehow the ball gets intercepted? Now you have all four people forward, and you only have a few. So that's why I'm saying there's a sacrifice there with that formation. I agree that that's probably one that we should utilize.
But on counters, even the way we're playing now, we've essentially had a lot of counters where we only have Pjanic back because he's playing so deep, where those other two sides have moved up, and counters are going to be a part of the game, and that, honestly, limiting counters comes down to how well you do in possession, and just it really depends on your game. Right now, playing slow as we are, we haven't been so susceptible to counters, other than from set pieces, which is just bizarre, like corner kicks. We give up counters like crazy. It's
the second goal or the third goal yesterday.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
But again, you're not creating a lot anyways, right? So you have to, and Sarri's actually said this a couple days ago, and it never came to fruition in this match against Lazio, but it's like, you have to take risks in order to be rewarded. So you know what, you're going to get countered from time to time. It all comes down to your play, though, and what you do dictates how often you get countered or whatnot. But playing slow is there comes a time you just gotta take the chance and see what you got here. But we need to experiment. We need to move. I don't know, man. I think Pjanic needs to be further up. I think that'll be key for us. I think he can do it probably better than the other guys we've been shifting in there. I think Rambo needs to go to a box-to-box position.
I think he's a better number 8 than he is anything else. When I watched him at Arsenal, that to me was his better position. But the only fear that I have with moving Mira up forward like that is the moment he starts to play deeper. Like the moment he gets pressed or he checks out of attack, because he's going to be our main guy. How is that going to affect the formation? How is that going to affect the team? How is that going to affect the build-up play? And I don't want to sacrifice that. I see Miralem Pjanic as more of a Fabinho, like with what Klopp has done with him at Liverpool. He may not play forward, but he's a huge piece of that puzzle. Like he's a huge playmaker for them as their defensive holding midfielder. To me, Miralem Pjanic should absolutely be that. The only thing that I have an issue with is you can't put an offensive playmaker that deep and then surround him with 2 defensive mids on his flanks. Yeah. That's where I have the issue, is that they have no creativity offensively from those 2 players. And Matuidi, God bless him, not great on offense, but he has to do so much on that left side to cover for Ronaldo. And then to cover when Sandro overlaps Ronaldo. Like, we can almost not sacrifice Blaise because of his defense. The right side is where we have an issue. And you mentioned this a few podcasts ago, I think it was a couple podcasts ago, is that we are very imbalanced on the sides that we attack. We are either very right-heavy or we are very left-heavy. We have no balance on being able to attack you from both sides at any given time. Yeah. That, to me, is a huge problem with this particular formation. And something happened yesterday during the match where there was a cross from the right to the left, and there was absolutely nobody there. And I'm like, where in the hell is Alexandro? Yeah. I think he had an awful game yesterday.
He was very, very poor.
But there was a moment where both your fullbacks have to be in the same line of communication. So if you get a cross from the right to the left, your other fullback has to be overlapping. That's the whole point in that entire formation, is that your fullbacks do the overlapping, and he wasn't there. So my only concern is just we need a little bit more balance on both sides. Cuadrado's going to push the ball forward. That's not a problem. The issue for me is having a defensive midfielder on the left side in Blaise Matuidi, and he has to do everything on that side between trying to be offensive and then track all the way back. I almost feel bad for him. So how do you get balance on both sides? Does the 4-2-3-1 help with maybe Emre Can and Blaise Matuidi as your 2 defensive mids? Because one good thing about Emre Can is that if you start Juan Cuadrado as your right back, Emre Can can go down to the right back position. He did it very well against Atletico last year. Yeah. So he can cover that. And he's got the motor to be your defensive mid and right back. My concern is going to be on the left side. When Alexandro goes forward, can Blaise Matuidi do that? Can he cover that?
He's played a game at left back this season.
Yeah.
Was okay.
So the only other formation could potentially be like a 3-1-4-2, and having Bonucci kind of step up a little bit and kind of be your playmaker from the back. We have the defensive players between De Ligt, Demiral. You could leave one other. You can leave Emre Can back there at right back. This is difficult because I feel like the more we change and the more we try to find a solution, the more we're going to stay the same the way that we did last year. That's the hard part.
And that's why, it could be just very, very minimal as far as, obviously he picked up a knock yesterday. We don't know what happened, but Bentancur, just sliding him into that holding role and just pushing Pjanic out to the side could just be something as simple as that, where we don't have to get into new shapes or anything like that. Or we don't even push Pjanic to the side, and we actually put him in the trequartista role, and use Ramsey as a Metsala, Bernardeschi as a Metsala, keep Blaze there, and use Bentancur as that holder. It could be something like that that could change everything. The fear, some of the concerns, obviously, Pjanic has been playing that role for so long now. How long is it going to take for him to adapt and wrap around doing that, right? But these are things that, to me, would be surprising that hasn't come up in training so far, because we've been stale for about a month now, and Sarri wants to play this attacking ball. You see, like, you don't have to be this, you don't have to be Pep, you don't have to be Klopp to see it when you watch us play. How congested is there, and that spot's not working right now. Pjanic adds an element. Let's move him up the pitch. And sometimes it's frustrating following Juve, because there's so much of that, it seems, with this club, where we take a guy and we just, like, it's not even overthinking, but it's just like, oh no, you're going to play here. Why don't we just keep it simple? So many people want to say, like, it's funny, oh, this isn't PlayStation, this isn't Xbox or whatever, but maybe sometimes we just have to keep it like that. Whereas you have, okay, right wing is his labeled thing, I'm going to put him on right wing. Oh, attacking mid. Okay, I'm going to put him on attacking mid. Like, sometimes we just got to get back to just keeping it simple. We brought these guys in, like, we brought Bernardeschi in as a winger, and we've moved him all over the goddamn place. And it's crazy, and it's just like, I could see him working as a Metsala, and it has under Allegri for a few performances, but as a winger, it's not terrible. Like, what you get from him, like, is fine. His decision making, I think, probably would have been there, possibly, if we just kept at it. But then it's like, no, now we're gonna let you, like, free roam. Oh, okay, that's kind of all over the place. No, now we're going to put you as trequartista. And that hasn't been working. And it's like, we're just going to keep ramming it down everybody's throat until it works. Well, no, let's just go with what was working. And we just, I don't know. It's so frustrating to think about these things and these issues. Injuries are huge right now. And it's what a lot of people are using to defend Sarri right now, because he's coming under some heat. And now you get into the whole thing. Is it justified giving a guy heat right now? I've read a lot of comments where fans are just saying, well, no, we cannot judge him until he gets a proper midfield. I'm sorry. If we're going to stick to this midfield thing, I can go in there and coach. If it's going to be Vidal, Pirlo, Marquisio, let's be serious here. He's got the guys he has. That's it. He's got an improved midfield than what we had last year.
Okay? Yeah, he does.
Because Rabiot and Ramsey, granted injuries, can't do it, but he's got a better midfield. He's got depth. Last year, Allegri had 4 mids for 3 positions, or 5 mids maybe for 4 positions, but one of them's Khedira. So, you got these guys. You mentioned talking about Liverpool. Liverpool won the Champions League last year, and for me, that is not a world-class midfield. Okay? It isn't. Okay? But they got a system that works, and they have guys that know their roles, and they just go in there and they just do their job. Simple. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Number one, we don't reward or follow up good performances.
Right.
Shoot ourselves in the foot. And Sarri's guilty of that already. The system. There was going to be transition going to Sarri. But now, this doesn't even look like Sarri's system. Like, you touched on it. It looks like a mishmash. We don't have the system going. So it's like, we constantly want to, again, throw it to the midfield. Throw it to the midfield. He needs a midfield. He needs a midfield. Granted, we could make a couple acquisitions that would help us, but there's so much more to the issue. And this, to me, is why we do have to hold Sarri accountable.
Yeah.
Any job you take, there is a 3-month probationary period before you actually get the job, before it's actually locked in, solidified. Now, I'm not saying football should be that way, but it's definitely more than fair to pass judgment, okay, on a manager that's taken over. He's got these guys, okay, he's got more depth than we had last year. We've scored less goals, okay, and we're supposed to be under this attack-minded coach that's supposed to sort this all out. We've scored less goals at this time. We've conceded more goals as well. So if we were scoring a hell of a lot more, it's okay to concede some more.
Yeah.
But now it's like we're not even banging them in, and we're conceding more, and the play's just stale, stagnant. He essentially had started off very well, and you could see the changes. I was like, okay, this is gonna look good, but now it's like nothing has changed.
But you know he did that. He did that last year. He goes to the EPL, he implements his system, and they go 8 wins, no losses, no draws. And then he gets figured out. And then when that happens, he starts to drop off. And I have so many issues with just Sarri as a coach. I didn't like him. I didn't like the hire. I didn't like any of that. But I'm trying to think of my train of thought. Oh, back to the midfield. I'm just gonna start with that. This argument for we need these players. We need, this world-class player, this world-class player. This is the way that I see it, is that you have a car, and that car can go 100 miles an hour, but you only drive 50 miles an hour. And then you go, man, I want a car that drives 200 miles an hour. Well, you haven't even maximized the car that you're in. You only drive 50 out of it. So for me, the argument that I'm making is a Christian Eriksen and a Paul Pogba do not solve these problems when you can't even maximize the talent that you have in midfield right now. If they were playing at their highest limit and you said, you know what, the level of talent is just not there. Everything else is, but the level of talent is not there. Then I can say, you know what, we do need that one world-class midfielder to get us over that hump. But we're not doing that. Rodrigo was the man of the match before he got hurt yesterday. And did you see how great he played at that right mid position? And we've been starting Sami Khedira over him.
Yep.
So you're gonna tell me we need a new midfield, and you have guys like that just sitting on your bench and you haven't maximized his potential, number one. Number two, this idea of Sarri needs time to implement his system. I've been saying it since day one. How many other first-year coaches are there playing in any league right now who have come in, have completely taken over, implemented their system, and they have their team playing well? And you can crucify me if you want, but Antonio Conte has his team playing well. This is his first year. Do you think that there was no change between Spalletti and him? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. Frank Lampard comes into Chelsea, has a 2-year transfer ban or a 1-year transfer ban, loses players, and has that Chelsea playing far better than Sarri ever did. So this idea that we need players, it's a very weak mentality. It's very easy to, point the finger, and Sarri needs to be held accountable. Sarri is not doing what he should be doing with the players that he has. We have a really good squad.
Yeah.
Nobody on our squad should be B-level, anything like that. If you want them on the bench, that's fine. There might be players who can probably play one position better than the other, and they deserve to be benched, no problem.
I think you kind of, going to the Conte's thing, I think you've kind of answered it too moments earlier when you just discussed the complexity of Sarri's system, obviously, like for the players to grasp and whatnot. because Conte's got a real straightforward style. He lines up the way he lines up, and it's in your face football, and it's just like it's not hard to transition to that, right? Allegri's system was apparently I don't know why, but apparently it was very complex too, and he had a lot of players that was had open discussions about that, and how it was like there were so many requirements for each specific position and role, whatnot. So, and again, I guess I even said it earlier in this podcast, we need to keep it simple as a club. But you're spot on, and I'm going to give a prime example to people listening when we want to talk about players and why I'm not just buying into this midfield thing. Like, granted, we shoot ourselves in the foot with Khedira getting repeated starts all the time, and it's brutal. But Paulo Dybala is a prime example. He is a prime example. He struggled heavily last season, and there was a lot that said it's time to kick him out, get rid of him. And my defense was, what are you expecting of a guy with his build, his skill, his abilities to do in a system that is get the ball out wide and cross it in? This is a player that has to get the ball to feet. He has to be higher up in goal. It's just, that's your prime example. So when you want to grab midfielders, people were ready to sell Pogba, bring in whatever strikers they're calling for. It's not going to change if your system just doesn't suit the talents you have. Right. We talked about Liverpool's midfield. Not a world-class midfield in my opinion, but a solid unit that gets the job done. We have to, you're spot on, maximize what we have and figure that out before we make any additions. It just doesn't make sense. What are you adding to? Like, what we have is broken. It's not working. So what do you add? Everybody wants, we're going to put Eriksen in that trequartista role. I'm sorry, but what the hell is that going to do when that trequartista role is just, it's flooded? I don't care who you put in there. It's not going to work because just everything else around it. Like, for one position to work, everyone else surrounding it needs to do their job in order to help that individual succeed at his role. So, it's so simple as when you think to Douglas Costa's goal against Lokomotiv in the Champions League. He started out on the wing. Rabiot, who takes a lot of flack, made a simple run. A simple run that opened up the huge alley for Costa to go to work. All these things. It's got it. Higuain, after he sees the movement, the alley open up, Higuain comes in to create that pivot for him. It's all got to come together. Granted, everybody wanted to just, Costa was fantastic, but there were so many little things within that goal. And that's how the game works. But to just...
And that to me was, it had nothing to do with Sarri. That was absolute individual brilliance by Douglas Costa. And my argument too with the whole Sarri and his system thing is this, is let's say they get the system to work, but it's shit. So what if they're doing exactly what you want them to do and you're executing exactly the way that you want them to execute, which they're not. But the defensive tactics by the opponents can break your system. That's my argument, is that like you might be doing things exactly the way that you want them to. And it's a bad system. That's where I stand with that.
Yeah, and my thing is, if you talk about the things that you want to come to fruition with the club and whatnot, if they're not happening, why are you doing the same thing? That's the part that frustrates me, not seeing enough changes. And I don't know if it's the fact that he's taking on expectations he never has had previously. You know what I mean? There's been that freeway there, that freedom there. Now he's on a much shorter leash with the expectations that come from being at Juve, and maybe that's changed him. Maybe he's doing things that he normally wouldn't do. Maybe the fact that he's got an ego he's never had to deal with in Ronaldo, that he just can't, maybe it's changed him. And maybe it's changed him for the worse. But to say that he's not responsible, I'm sorry, like, I'm a manager. Okay? I'm a manager. I took on a position. I went in there. I was given the staff I was given. But I took what I had, and we've made huge strides. And the efficiency's cranked up, and that's what a manager's job is to do. You take what you've been given. So anybody can manage if we're going to go out there and bring in all these guys with the money that we don't have. So it's like, he has to be responsible. This is the club he's been given and, put in charge with. What I don't like currently is a lot of this talk about Allegri. It was time for a change. We can't all come to terms with him leaving, agree to this change, and then all of a sudden bring him up again, whatever. Allegri could have been in the same boat, to be honest, this season. It was time for a change. So I just think the Allegri talk needs to kind of go to the back burner here. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's frustrating because it's always the same stories, the midfield and the transfers. But again, look at the midfield that Liverpool's running with, and it's unreal. You look at the money spent by Pep, and look at where Pep is right now in the EPL.
I was just about to say that, like, to argue point further, is that you could have the most expensive midfield in the world, and it doesn't guarantee anything. No. Pep has spent $2 billion since he's been at Man City. He has arguably the best trio in the world of midfielders on his team. And they're 14 points behind the leaders. Yeah. So stop telling me that you need to off this person and we need to bring this person. Stop. Like, I'm tired of our fans saying this person and this person are not good enough. They don't deserve to be on the pitch. Yeah, they do. They're not being utilized correctly. It's as simple as that. Maximize where they are. And I think a good coach does that. A good coach does not come in and go, okay, guys, my system is this. I'm going to put you here. I think a good coach comes in and takes what his system is and he meshes it with what his players are best at. He basically plays to their strengths and develops their weaknesses. Our strengths on this team is speed. Okay, our strengths on this team are basically our plays from the flanks. And so what did he do? He made us more narrow. We play everything from the middle, and it doesn't make sense. Not to mention, he makes Ronaldo work so much harder as a 34-year-old man because of this particular formation. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, like, I truly think that there's an issue between Ronaldo and Sarri. I think they're doing the best that they can to cover it up.
I think for sure.
But I absolutely believe that there's an issue there.
And to touch on where you were going there, argumentatively, his theory on adapting, because he did talk about this earlier in the season, you can't come in with a set system, like you have to see what you have. So he actually said, the point you're trying to make, and his correction for that with us was the 4-3-1-2 in order to get 2 out of those 3 on the pitch at all times. Ronaldo, Dybala, Higuain. He saw Ramsey as being that attacking mid and Bernardeschi as being those attacking mids. The issue is, somewhere along the lines, it's stopped working, and now he hasn't adapted again to what he has. And he needs to. So It's essentially working off his own words. It's just now he's stopped and become stubborn and stuck on what he switched to. It's Ronaldo. It's not working for quite a few guys. It has progressed some, but it's left others completely stale and stagnant. something's got to change. I don't know what's going to happen. It's frustrating.
And I think there's good players that are not playing that could maybe offer more in this particular formation. Mario Mandzukic as a center forward in a 4-3-1-2 might offer more than what we're getting. Like I said, Gonzalo Higuain's probably been a top 5 player for us this season. But if you put Mario Mandzukic in there, in a 4-3-3 or in a 4-3-1-2, what is our goal count then? And I'm just hypothetically speaking. Like there have been players that he just seemingly doesn't utilize, feels like maybe they're too old. I don't know, but could have completely changed this. Now, for me, was it time for Allegri to go? Yes, and I think it was time for Allegri to go because I think the players started to have an issue with the coach, and when that happens, and you have a bad locker room, there's a lot of toxicity. You have to make that change. My argument in the very beginning was, do you let Max Allegri go to hire Sarri? And my argument, no, you don't. You don't get a coach who's been dominated by your previous coach and who hasn't really done anything to come in there and then take them to the promised land. Because the whole point of getting Sarri was we want to win Europe. And I've argued this on my very, very first podcast with you, that Serie A, great. Domestic, great. I want Europe. Ain't no way we're winning Europe playing like this.
No.
So,
and that's the thing though with Allegri is I don't think, and this is why, is like I honestly do believe the change was for us to be that aggressor. Right. And I just don't think Allegri had it in him, or they just didn't believe it. They had a meeting before it all kind of went down. I don't know. Could you accomplish that with Allegri? I don't think so. His system's like cut and dry, and like, right. You know, but in saying that, I mean, we played games under him where we crushed opponents, and we haven't come close to crushing anybody under Sarri. You know, hasn't even looked that way. We've had games where we've had a lot of chances, and we just, again, it comes down to like conversion rate, which has been poor this season. It could have been better last season too. Cost us quite a bit too. So conversion rate is just another issue on its own, which Allegri, Sarri, whatever, they can't come in there and pot the goals.
right, yeah.
But conversion rate being an issue, set pieces always like an issue. It was really bad at the start of this year. It got better, but again, just we have these little things that just continue to follow us and haunt us. It's strange, but like our set pieces, our own set pieces, have become so poor. Free kicks, we don't have the beauty of getting those goals lately, because now the discussion's always who's taking the damn thing.
Right.
Nobody can get in a rhythm. Nobody can, it's crazy, but we shoot ourselves in the foot. And again, it comes down to the biggest thing, which is keeping it simple. Juve needs to get back. Keep it simple. You know who's deadly on those free kicks. Let them take it. You see who's had a bad performance. Don't follow it up again. Like, let's keep the rotation moving. Get that level of compete up so that a guy knows, hey, you know what? I shit the bed. I need to be way better to get minutes again. Or not, oh, well, he's got no one else to put there, so I'm going to go in there again. No. Right. Like, let's just get back to the basics and keeping it simple. But these are things that have been haunting us and coming back to bite us for quite some time now. And then you throw into there. Everybody wants to talk about the midfield and management. Has management shot ourselves in the foot? Sure. I think it's more actually than people want to focus on the midfield. I think it's a fact that we have no fullbacks. We have 3 fullbacks occupying 4 positions. It's had to have Cuadrado back. Maybe Cuadrado would have been better under Sarri in an attacking role. rather than having to use him at right back because we screwed ourselves in the Mercado, and signing those extensions. And it's like, we have to get rid of Spinazzola. Well, Spinazzola brought out the best in Sandro last year because Spinazzola was out playing him. So it's just little things like that. But then again, it's the plus Valenza. It's the, it's the extensions that handcuffed us. Then we couldn't sell guys, and now we have to move the young guys. Moise Kean. We have to use Spinazzola, and it sucks. It's stupid that we have to do these things.
Have you seen Luca Pellegrini's stats?
Pellegrini's been. I've watched a couple of their games. He's lights out, man. He's been unreal. I hope we can bring him back in January, but there's been no talk of it. But
so we did exactly that. We got our fullbacks, and then we loaned our fullbacks, which didn't make sense.
Yeah. But not only that, we pass on. What's it? Why is his name? He played Sensi. We pass on Sensi. We pass on Barella. And it's like not big money we're talking about.
Yeah. And
guys that would drastically improve our club. But Juve's getting into a mode where I don't personally like, where it's, and this is where we get into this whole marketing thing, you know. And if you're going to get into a situation, and this is the prime example, and I want people to really think about this because we're honing in on this Liverpool midfield, okay? So you want to talk marketing and the way Juve's going, and you want to target big names. So everybody wants to talk the Pogba. Well, how sweet would it be when Sensi's lighting up the league, the same league that we're now in second place in? Granted, it's only 2 points, but he lights it up, plays fantastic. Even Barella's plays great, would improve Juventus. And we spend a third of the money that we would spend on a Pogba that may not necessarily even solve all issues. It's not a guarantee Pogba comes in and we win Champions League. Everybody knows I love me Paul Pogba, okay? But it's not a guarantee. We just need to stop with this marketing thing, and this name's not good enough for Juventus type mentality and only focus on these big names.
Yeah.
We need to pick up these guys that are in our backyard and boost the team. Get back to the basics. I don't know, this team's just altered drastically. We have no identity.
Absolutely. I agree to that. And that's why I like the whole playing kind of like this or kind of like that. It's not working. But going back to Stefano and Nicolo, if we had, the issue that I have with Ramsey and Rabiot is not only did we get two very injury-prone midfielders, we decided to make them two of the top highest-paid players on our squad. So if you were to get the Sensi, who had played lights out until he got hurt, and then Barella, who's a box-to-box midfielder, which is what Sarri wants because you need that constant running. You could have paid them, like you said, a third of what we paid two of our highest-paid players right now who are currently sitting on our bench because they can't stay healthy. And then you could have figured out, if you had the money, we could have not offloaded Spinazzola. We could have not offloaded Luca Pellegrini. We could have had some depth in that position. Not saying that it would or would not have happened, but point being is not only did we not go after people in our own backyard, but we went after these very, very highly priced midfielders who are known to be injury prone and decided to make them some of our highest paid athletes, which makes zero sense. And then, same thing with Sami Khedira. We're paying him 6.5.
That's crazy.
He just had arthroscopic knee surgery. So then what does that do? That opens you up for our transfer. And I believe that if you would have had those two players, one on your right, one on your left, because Nicolo could have played on the left, Miralem in the middle, and Stefano Sensi on the right. And he's got a foot. He has a rocket for a foot, can score from way outside. Now, this is all hypothetical. Save yourself money. Another thing about Juventus, and I think a very, very small percentage of why I rate Bernardeschi, and you mentioned this, I believe, with Giuseppe, is that he is supposed to be that one Italian, up and coming player that we've been waiting for. So Juventus is not a squad filled with Italians anymore. And I think that's a little bit bothersome.
I was just gonna say we've lost that link to the Azzurri that we've always had. Where we made up most essentially the starting 11, and we've lost that link, and now we're again, and I believe it's marketing, and we're targeting players outside Italy, and we're trying to just get fans where we haven't had fans before, and it's potentially altering our business and our squad building. And at the end of the day, the squad is what counts. The club is what counts. If all of a sudden the success goes away, and I'm not saying it's because we don't have Italians, but it's just like, it's the business side of it. You're chasing these names that all these giants are in and whatnot that don't provide guarantees. But the other problem that gets me is, why are we going at them when they're so late in their career and stuff like that? We should be finding the young talents, grooming them like we used to, and then getting the sales. Like the business we did with Pogba, whatnot. But the Italians, granted, everybody wants to talk about the talent pool not being what it once was. Sure, but that doesn't mean that there's not talent out there, and that it's talent that we can't use. Because if you're trying to argue to me that we couldn't use either Stefano Sensi or Nicolo Barella, you're completely false. Like, it's completely wrong. We could have used one of them huge this season. I'm happy to see that we're in on Zaniolo and Tonali. For even Pellegrini doesn't have a huge fee. Lorenz Pellegrini would bring him in, but for me, Zaniolo could instantly plug in to the squad and be a boost. But again, we got to use him properly.
Right? Are we going to waste his talents? That's my biggest thing. He's going to come in and he's going to give us the same grade performance that we've been getting from everybody else.
It all comes down to that, and it's just bringing guys in and then changing who they are and what they do to fit us, rather than help them excel and succeed. And oh man, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. But we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, it's tough.
So
it's tough right now.
Let me ask you this, because I know we're probably getting close to
the end here. Yeah.
This is, to me, after what's been happening, Sarri doesn't make it past this year. I think it's a one and done thing. I think this entire year will be his probationary period. As long as we continue to put on poor performances, if we can't beat a team by 2 goals, because I don't remember the last time we won 2-0 or by 2 goals. I remember Atalanta was 3-1, but outside of that, we did not deserve to score that many. Who comes in? And to me, I've argued from day one to get Pochettino. Who comes in and gets this team back to where it needs to go? So if something happens and they say, you know what, this is not how we envisioned it, sorry, we're going to let you go. Who do you think what are our options to come in and get this team back to where it needs to be?
Honestly, I mean, talking about the whole Sack and Sarri thing too, just before we get to who replaces, I get that people are frustrated and stuff and whatnot. I mean, the season's still pretty early. We wait, we see what develops. If by chance, and I hope it doesn't come close to being true, but if we come out without a trophy in this particular season, it's really hard for me to say he doesn't get sacked. And I get it. Some will say, well, that's just unfair and look at the players he has and all that. But again, he doesn't have it that bad.
Right.
Okay, let's be serious here. We give some guys hard times on their performances and whatnot. he does not by any means have it that bad. He has the squad to win the Scudetto at bare minimum. At bare minimum. Okay? Yeah. No, for me, if we come out trophyless, like, he has to be sacked. And even if we get a trophy and say it's only like the Supercoppa or Coppa Italia, it's still up in question. His job is still in jeopardy. I think what'll be interesting is to see what comes at the end of the season, what we end up with. And I think it'll give us a glimpse as to maybe there was all other plans. And maybe this was just a filler to get to who we wanted and what we wanted to see. I think time's going to tell, but I mean, honestly, who do we get? I think we're in the same boat we were last summer. You know, I think the usual candidates, I think it's going to be Poch, or I think it's going to be Pep. Pep's struggling now. A lot of people don't want Pep just because of how his demands for players and whatnot like that, and I understand that. Does it make more sense to get Pochettino? I actually think it does. I actually think he suits us. From a financial point of view, he's been known to get the most out of what he's been given, which is what we need. That's exactly what we need. His system, very well balanced system of play, and he can generate offense while still being very, very balanced defensively. I mean, honestly, it makes the most sense for Poch, but let's wait and see what happens there. But I think, honestly, for people to say we can't judge Sarri until he gets the midfield well, how long is that going to take?
Right, we may never get it.
Exactly. I mean, so we can't honestly think that way, right? But I think for Juve, Pochettino makes the most sense. Should Sarri end up going with? And then you get into this whole discussion, did Sarri make sense? I mean, it makes sense if everybody looks at that Napoli season where Higuain went mental and, they racked up that play.
That was 5 years ago? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
It was
4 or 5 years ago, right? And yeah, I mean, it's tough. I don't think Sarri's a bad manager by any means. But right now, he is struggling, and I think, yeah, there's an issue there with Ronaldo you touched on. There clearly is. There has to be. That whole scenario was so ugly. And you don't have to, be a pundit. You don't have to be a reporter to figure this shit out, because you watch enough sports, you see these warning signs all over the place. And they're there. And body language speaks volumes. But there's something there.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, all we could do is keep doing what we're doing, man, and just supporting and hoping for the best. But it's got to be a hell of a lot better.
Well, a part of me, because we have, I believe, Leverkusen on Wednesday. So part of me feels like, with the state that we're in now, with the injuries that we have that come Wednesday when we play the Champions League match. Now, we already got the group taken over. Why not put people, let them go play, and just have them play relax-free ball? You know what I'm saying? Like, just go out there, maybe go back to the basics. Just focus on doing one thing. String 4, 5, 6 passes together, and then try to strike the ball. Like, don't go into this thinking, okay, we have to implement this. You need to put some players out there. Let them go have fun, get the pressure off your back, and see what happens. Because my thing is, with the limited players that we have available, this is going to be a very weirdly shaped plug-and-play game that we're going to play on Wednesday.
This is the prime moment to try Pjanic in a trequartista role.
Right.
Like, this is a prime match to make some attempts at getting signs of something that you could use Like, this is the prime match to do that. You know, nothing to play for more in this group. We've won it.
Right.
Get some answers. Figure something out, right? But yeah, we'll see what happens. Real quick before we wrap up here, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, just I mean, we've talked about quite a bit. This is a big, just general speaking. I don't believe that, you know, if we play poorly, I'm just not a fan of pinpointing players, you know, and saying we need to offload this player, we need to offload this player, because, you know, there's so many variables surrounding their potential poor play. So if you get poor play from one particular person, is the people around him also playing poorly and he's just getting emphasized? We as a team, not players, we as a team got to get better. Yeah. All 11 have to play better. If one person plays poorly, you still have 10 other players to pick up his slack. And that's the way that it should be. We shouldn't be pinpointing one person. And we got to get, like you said, we got to get back to the basics. Find an identity, which we haven't had since probably February of this past year. Get an identity and just learn how to play just good football. Like pick a tactic and focus on trying to perfect that one tactic. If we concede, we concede. If we score goals, we score goals. But me as a fan, me as a former athlete, me as a competitor, this idea of, well, we just need to off this person and bring this person in. It's not going to matter if you're not maximizing your talent. So that's one reason that's one thing I can't stand about this fan base is that type of mentality. But I'm not a fan of Sarri, but I think we have exactly what we need if things start snowballing in the right direction. We have a good squad. We just have to get back to playing good football. That's it.
The sad thing is you know, he had momentum. He had momentum at the start, and I don't know why, but we lost it. And since then, it's just been spiraling. And, you know, granted, everybody focuses on the undefeated, but that's gone now too, you know. And the thing
maybe that's exactly what we needed. We needed to. It sucked that it happened yesterday.
Yeah. The thing is that honestly, I'm shocked that it took that long. I'm shocked that it took that long at how we were sleepwalking through matches again. Yeah, I mean, that might be the best thing for us, sadly to say. But maybe this will be what Sarri needed. Maybe this is the kick in the ass he needed to say, you know what, I got to make some changes.
Right.
Got to figure this out.
I agree.
And maybe it's good for the players too. So you know, ultimately, you don't want to ever just, I hate saying that, it's just, no, we got to get rid of these guys, but there's a lot of guys, sometimes it's half of our starting 11 that could use that loss and take a good hard look in the mirror and say, you know, what could I have done better? What do I need to do? Because there's an attitude, a demeanor about this team that I absolutely hate. And what it is that it's almost like this entitlement that victory is going to come and that these calls are going to be made and whatnot. And it's just like, I see them attacking the ref and just like losing their minds. Granted, there's some shoddy work by the ref in the second half last month, but it doesn't matter. You know, like these victories aren't going to just come, and it's almost like we've become this team that just expects that victory to come. And it's instead of going out and just taking the damn thing.
Yeah.
And that's the most frustrating thing. And that's why, if anything, hopefully this helps to where they realize, you know what, we got to sort our shit out. Because it's really on everybody. It's on Sarri for the decisions he's making. And usually he's been bang on, but there's been about 2 matches. And yesterday was one of them where his subs were... Oh, man, like, yesterday was a bad one for subs. I didn't agree with the subs he was making. But the players themselves, just, oh man, I don't know. It's tough. It's early in the season. The fact that Mayor de Drew helped, but we got to get it back, and you could see it in the fan base too. We were coming up against the match with Lazio. Everybody talking about regaining top spot and all this, and it's like Lazio's not going to be a walk in the park. They're playing unreal. They're scoring a lot of goals. Again, it's just expected. You just expect it. And I found it in myself too. I found it in myself in my predictions. I was like, oh, you know what? I went 2-0 and then I went 2-1 because I'm like, I just expect us to grind it out and be this ugly win, whatever. And that's what we've come to expect. And I think the players are just caught in the same trap where they just expect that at the end of the day, no matter how shitty their ball is or how good it is, they'll just find a way. And that's going to disappear really, really quick.
And one last thing because I know you're doing your own thing with the Lazio match specifically, is one thing I also want to point out too is like judging players for the match yesterday is difficult because you're not talking about a bad team. So yesterday, if we played poorly, I think that should be separate from all the previous games that we played poorly, because Lazio is a good team. So if you're going to judge a poor performance from teams yesterday, it's difficult to do because you're talking about one of the top squads in Serie A anyway. Yeah. So you can expect a grind, a scrappy, a bad game against that team anyway, no matter what. Just previous years, it's never been fun. It's never been easy. This is not a bottom of the barrel squad that, okay, if he plays poorly, you can absolutely criticize him. If guys like Dybala, like yesterday, Dybala didn't play very well yesterday. There's plenty of people that didn't play well yesterday. Alexandro didn't play well. Bernardeschi didn't play well. Miralem Pjanic didn't play well. But that's to be expected against this squad because this is a very, very good squad. So that was another thing that I had an issue with, is the moment that we didn't play well and you hop on the Twitter universe and they're over here criticizing people. It's like, well, have you ever watched Juve and Lazio play before? Like, this is a really good team that we're playing against. I mean, if you think about it in other sports, if you take the New England Patriots and you play them against the San Francisco 49ers, are you going to criticize the loser of that team or the loser of that game? Probably not, because it's two very dominant teams playing. So that was another thing, is that I thought some of the criticism, myself included, maybe a little bit unwarranted, because this is a very good Lazio team that we're playing. So it's almost to be expected that we just didn't play great. But that means that if our level of play is here and their level of play is here, we're still head and shoulders above some of the other competition. That's my point. Is like it's to be expected to play that poor.
Yeah. No, I mean, that we've touched on that throughout this pod. It's so easy to just go at players and stuff, but it's everything, right? It's system. It's absolutely everything that's got to fall in line, and we don't make it easier on our players, and. Prime example in this match, Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, who was a target apparently last season, scores a brilliant goal, does a great job to take that in, and then bury right away. It's almost like, and I saw this from a big Twitter account, it's almost like we need a midfielder like Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. And my instant thought was, how about that ball played in by Luis Alberto? And I said, who gives him that ball? Who sends that ball in? Because that ball come out from wide left. Well, let's think about who plays there. Sandro or Matuidi? Is Matuidi going to send him that ball? No chance in hell. So it's like, again, it's just not a player thing. It's just a simple systematic thing. And I actually saw
Bernardeschi get criticized, among the many other things, obviously, but criticized because that very first goal, Luis Alberto was playing on the left, cut in into his right, and sent the ball in. Beautiful ball. And people were blaming that the goal was scored because Bernadeschi didn't play better defense. Now, I've watched a lot of football in my day. I've never at one point seen someone get criticized because the ball that got crossed in, which was a perfect ball, that the defender on that person gets criticized because the goal was scored. How about your defense? How about your center backs?
How about it having, they just want to deny the fact it has nothing to do that before that moment came, we absorbed pressure for about 7 minutes
Right.
straight. 7 minutes straight where nobody was pressing the ball, and we just dropped further and further back and just conceded corner kicks. And I'm like, eventually that goal was going to come because we turned the switch off. We stopped playing. And it's just like, again, what do you want to do? Do you want to be that team that just, okay, come at us wave after wave after wave? We don't even counter. So it's like, what are we doing? We're just going to sit here and just absorb. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand our play. And that's what it comes down to. And that's what this whole thing, essentially this overall discussion has kind of come back around to, is I would challenge anybody right now to tell us what our system is and what our play is. We saw glimpses of it at the start. It has since disappeared. We are no longer that possession team where at the start of the year we controlled and dictated the play. We don't do that anymore. We're not capable of it anymore. I don't know why. Same players. But we don't control possession and we don't dictate the tempo that the match is played at anymore. It's gone. So we don't do that. We are not a counter-attacking team where we, we play defensive, we go into our shell, and then we hit you with counters. We don't do that. We are not a get the ball deep and cross it in. We're not that team because our flanks shut it down about 15 yards into the opposition half. So it's like, we're not an overlapping team. What are we? I'm challenging listeners right now to try and make sense of our play right now and tell me what type of team we are. I don't think you can. And this is what we're getting at. This is the overall discussion that's frustrating to me. That's not something that comes down on the players. To me, that comes down to your coach. And I would love and challenge everybody listening to reach out on Twitter and, talk to us about it. I'm always a game for discussion, but I challenge anyone to tell me what type of team we are. You can't. Sarri at least under Allegri, you knew what you were going to get. I hated it, but you knew what you were going to get. You knew what to expect. Match in, match out. Right now, all I'm thinking before a game is, are we going to show up? It's frustrating. We'll see. I hope Sarri uses the Bayern match to get some answers and figure something out, but we need to turn it around and turn it around quick. This one didn't hurt us too bad. We're 2 points out of top spot, but we can't continue on the run we're at. Draw to Sassuolo, L against Lazio. It's got to turn around. It's got to turn around quick. But everybody listening, reach out. It's criminal that this man doesn't have more followers. I'm going to help you get there. But thank you so much for your time today, man. We've been trying to hook this one up for a while. Appreciate reaching out and want to set that up. And for everybody listening, this is fair game for anyone. If you want to join on the pod, just reach out. As always, Forza Juve, Fino alla fine.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Take care.